As if suspension work ain't enough. Now I gotta go in here again. Wonderful. Alright, we are back again with, it seems to be a trend now, the Scion. Yep, got more work to do on this thing, and this moment I gotta go and do some minor engine stuff, namely replace a thermostat. Why? Not 100% sure if this is the actual cause, but with it being literally 100 degrees out, when the car is fully warmed up, if it is not moving, the temperature gauge will eventually start creeping up to a point where if you sit any longer, it'll get into the danger zone. Already replaced the rad cap and that didn't do any good. It's totally topped off with coolant. Water pump is moving coolant as well. There is nothing leaking or anything that might imply that there's air in the cooling system, so the last thing to really look at would be the thermostat. If it is not opening fully like it needs to, it could cause a problem. To replace this thing, there's a little housing right here just next to and underneath the alternator right here. It's kind of tucked in there. There's two little studs holding it in place with 10mm nuts, one of them which is visible right there, that I'll have to get off. Of course, it's not just cut and dry because, well, you got coolant to deal with, so gotta release all that coolant. On the left side, on the driver's side at the bottom of the radiator, you should have your little valve down there to open it up and let all that garbage out. Get our little pan under there so we can do that. Of course, you'll also want to take your cap off in order to help relieve pressure. And go ahead and open the thing up so we can get all that out, because we don't want to make a mess, much less waste antifreeze. So in the meantime, while that's draining, I'm gonna go ahead and get my tools, which really is nothing more than a 10mm socket and ratchet and extension, so we can get that housing off. So stand by. With a short extension, I'm not really sure the official length of what would be called a short extension, but you can see the short extension that I'm using puts our deep well socket as well as our ratchet in just the right positions to clear the AC hose and alternator, so we can get the swing necessary to actually turn the thing in order to get the nut off. Of course, not going to be able to do it with one hand, but you get the idea. As far as the bottom nut, I'll have to use just the socket and ratchet. Actually, correction, I am using the same extension on the bottom, just had to reposition everything just right to get the angle to get right on the nut down there so I can get that off. So again, I will get this off and we will have our housing off in a second. Stand by. Alright, with our housing loose, I could actually pull it free enough that I can move it off to the side and get our old thermo out. As you can see, old thermostat. Got a lot of shit in there. What the hell is that? That thing does kind of look like it would be considered bad, so yeah, okay, well, throw that over there. Have to check that housing out, but we will look at our new unit right here. Essentially the same thing, some little fancy gizmo that's got a fail-safe thing where I guess if it somehow malfunctions, it'll lock the thing in the open position so your engine doesn't cook itself. But one thing to look at here, if you need to, you might need to pull off your housing right here. You got your short rad hose down there that would have to come off in order to pull the housing all the way out. We won't need to do that right here, but just for future reference, more than likely you're not going to have a worm clamp on yours. You're going to have that springy garbage on there. That's why I put the worm clamp on there, because it's a lot easier to get a screwdriver in there than a pair of pliers or whatever to release the worm clamp. If you have to do that, you're more than likely going to probably end up pulling something out like the alternator, just to make life easier on yourself. But let's zoom in here, and there we go. We could see that everything is pretty much clean on that surface there. As for this piece, this too, focus, there we go. That too is, for all intents, clean. Get this situated here, there we go. So with that, I'll go ahead and reseat this little doohickey right here. This thing here has the gasket in place. Obviously, you'll probably have to buy the gasket separately because nobody's going to be nice enough to give you the gasket with the thermostat, but it's a little O-ring style with a groove inside it to fit around the lip of this base right here. So this is how it'll end up looking. Seat that in there. See, with that in there, all we gotta do is just slide our cover back on. I'm gonna have to do this with two hands, so stand by. All right, had to kind of put some tension on the hose in order to get this thing positioned just right to get it straight onto the studs, but we're on there now. We can go ahead and put our nuts back on. The O-ring gasket thingy on the thermostat is what seals this whole mess, which makes me wonder how the heck the other one was sealing, because it looked like that other one disintegrated, which is kind of wild. But again, that's neither here or there. Go ahead and get this thing back together so we can get some coolant in here and get this engine running, because we're gonna have to run it in order to burp out the air that we just administered to the system. Let me torque these nuts down and get some coolant in here, so stand by. All right, got a good amount of antifreeze in our rad here. Even though it's topped off, it is not topped off. I'm gonna have to run this thing with the cap off so we can burp out the air and obviously add more coolant as need be, so this thing will be running at its optimum. So let's start her up. All right, currently running. Let this thing warm itself up. Like I say, we left the rad cap off so it can burp out any air as the thing eventually starts moving coolant around. Eyeball that area down there if we could see. Yeah. Make sure there ain't no leakage going on down there. And give this a little bit of time to do its thing. Stand by again. Well, been running several minutes now, and I added more coolant as it slurped it down. I'm at a point now where it seems like I would say it's topped off, and the temperature for all intents is holding. Have to put the cap on so it could build up pressure, but yeah, we have normal operating temperature, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw the cap back on. Get that. There we go. And let her run some more and see how things act then. Stand by. All right, we've been running for probably a good 15 minutes with the air on high, and our temperature is holding steady with the cap on, building up pressure. No leaks anywhere. Everything seems to be good for all intents and purposes. So yeah, probably going to consider this thing straight now. So that's pretty much what is involved with a thermostat replacement on an 07 Scion. So as usual, till the next time, like, subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more work on this car and others. So I'll catch you later. I'm out.